Good evening, everyone. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, please.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of IP Innovative Publication, I extend a warm welcome to all of you to the symposium on practice and policies in research publication. This 2 day symposium is devoted to promoting excellence in scholarly publishing. Throughout our session, we will engage with academicians, researchers, editors, reviewers, authors to search into essential aspects of the publication process, including editorial board structure, peer review practices, content relevance, and much more. So, our first session today will focus on foundational practices and evolving policies in research publication. So, here we are. So, let me introduce you with Innovative Education and Scientific Research Foundation. It is one of the leading non-profit organization dedicated to medical and scientific research. IESRF is associated with various scientists, medical professionals, research scholars, and students who are dedicated to research and development in the field of medical, health, pharmaceutical, nursing, dental, and allied science. Now, IP Innovative Publication, we are sponsored by IP Innovative Publication. IP Innovative Publication Private Limited is leading publisher in the publication of medical, dental, nursing, pharmacy, print, and open access books and journals in India, and serving since last 15 years. We are currently publishing 55 plus journals and 300 plus books in medical and health science subject. We believe in the power of open access to accelerate and dissemination of scientific research publication, which makes it accessible to researchers, scholars, academicians, and the researchers community. Below, you can see the stats about how many journals we are having, the number of articles we publish, the number of journals we have, the number of articles downloaded, and the number of article viewed. Now, the objective. This symposium aims to foster discussions on the latest trend in research, publication ethics, regular practices, and emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and digital innovation. Your expertise and insights are instrumental in maintaining the credibility, relevance, and scholarly integrity of our journal. Agenda, as we are having speakers with us, so our main focus is on editorial board composition, peer review process, content relevance, and quality. So it's my great pleasure to introduce with our respected speakers. We are having with us Dr. Manu Rathi ma'am, Dr. Vidya Shekhar ma'am, and Dr. Vidya Rajesh ma'am. Most welcome to all the respected speakers. Thank you once again for taking out your precious time with us and joining us today. So here are the few links of Scopus evaluation guidelines. We are going to discuss on this also. So on the screen, you can see there are some parameters given by the Web of Science for journal evaluation process. So we have taken third category, third stage, that is editorial evaluation, because we are facing problem in this category only. So we have initially we have cleared first two, that is initial triage and editorial triage, and in the third we have taken three topics for today presentation. So so we are having currently index journals, that is the Indian Journal of Clinical Experimental Ophthalmology, IP International Journal of Medical Microbiology and Tropical Disease, Indian Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology Research, IP Annals of Prosthodontics and Restorative Dentistry, Indian Journal of Clinical Anesthesia, IP Indian Journal of Clinical Experimental Dermatology, Panacea Journal of Medical Sciences, Journal of Contemporary Orthodontics. And it's a great news that recently our two journal, that is IP Indian Journal of Immunology and Respiratory Medicine and Indian Journal of Forensic and Community Medicine, got indexed in Scopus. So it's a big achievement for IP innovative publication. It means we are on right track. It means we are moving forward. It means we are in right direction, and we hope for better future. So So now we will proceed with the presentation. So first we have Dr. Manu Rathi ma'am, senior professor and head of department. She will be speaking on peer review process. Ma'am will talk us through and give directions on the ethical dimensions of the review process, the responsibilities of peer reviewers, and the importance of maintaining transparency and integrity in scholarly evaluations. So, ma'am, so please, share your insights with us. Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Am I audible, Kushbu? Kindly
Yes, ma'am,
confirm.
you are audible.
Uh, is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
This is the one. No, not this one. Yeah. So, Kushbu, kindly verify whether my audio video is visible at the other end before I proceed further.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible to us and your screen is visible to us.
Okay, thank you so much, dear Kushbu. Thank you for arranging this wonderful online event. And at the onset, I extend my thanks to the IP Innovative Publications for giving me this opportunity to interact with this cohort of scientific researchers and any professionals who are related to the scientific publications. Thank you so very much, Dr. Nikita and Dr. Rakesh specifically. And this presentation in the symposium on practice and policies in research publication, I shall be discussing briefly about the peer review. Peer review is a very powerful word. And what it is a process of subjecting an author's scholarly work or any research work to the scrutiny of others who are expert in the field. But it is the peer review element, I think, that holds the strongest position as far as scientific publication is concerned. The peer review of scientific manuscript is the cornerstone of modern science and medicine because it helps in establishing the scientific evidence, because every scientific evidence has to go through the peer review. That's why the peer-reviewed journals rely on expert and objective review by the knowledgeable researchers to ensure that the quality of the papers they publish. It means any work, scientific work, which has gone through the process of peer review, that gives a hallmark that this is an authentic work and approved and validated by the peers. And who are those peers who hold the position to validate? Those are the expert in the field. So the collective activities of the investigators who review the manuscript in a scientific disciplines are critical to maintaining the standards of the journals and the field, because peer review is the parameter that decides what is the scientific work of quality and that will see the light of the day. That is why the onus on the peer reviewers is a lot. The reviewer's opinion on such matters as which techniques are current, valid, and appropriate, how data should be analyzed and presented, and how rigorous must be or speculative authors can be in interpreting their data, that becomes a de facto standard of the field. In a way, the reviewers are the one who decide what are the standards in a scientific field. Because see, any new thing is welcomed and that is indication of the progress. However, who is to decide what is new as well as acceptable? Otherwise, any weird new cannot be considered as the new standard. If I may cite it for example, that uh, reviewers use their intelligence and rather I would say expertise in the field to decide that this is new. However, if such thing is delegated to artificial intelligence to create a new, it might create a fish with the wings. Though it is new, but is it really acceptable? So that prerogative lies with the reviewer. So, in a way, if we can say that reviewers are the one who would decide what is new in the scientific field, which is acceptable. And that is how the reviewers contribute to the growth of the scientific fields. The reviewer's critic sets the standards of collegiality, behavior, and ethics. not only through their recommendations concerning which paper should be published or which should be rejected, but also through the tone and wording of their reviews and through the thought they give to the scientific and ethical responsibilities as reviewers. Because anything in the name of science, also wrongdoing cannot be promoted. For just an hypothetical example, if the some great research is done which is against the human race, or which is causing the fatal some techniques to the humanity, just because it is new, it is done in the lab or scientific way, it cannot be considered as a scientific literature. So that's how the reviewers stop or the filter what actually is the scientific material. And that is how the reviewers act as a watchdog for the scientific publications. That's why a big onus lies on the reviewers. So while selecting the reviewers, what do the editors look for? First thing, expertise, but in what? In one or more areas of a paper. So whenever a paper is come, it has not become a piece of scientific evidence. Before that, it has to be reviewed, and then an expert is to be decided as a reviewer. However, it is very important to understand reviewer is not for the may not be for the whole manuscript, because any scientific work would involve many domains. Maybe one is a clinical domain, one is the lab work area, some material science is involved, some equipment is involved, some ethical issues involved. And one expert cannot be is may not be expert in for all those areas. Maybe statistics is involved. So the editors choose an expert may be giving reviewer comments on one aspect of the manuscript. However, over here it is very important to declare whenever a reviewer is giving any comments that these comments pertain to the whole manuscript or one particular segment of the manuscript, and what which all segment of the manuscript has not been commented upon by the reviewer for the reason that area being out of the scope of his or her expertise. Also, objectivity, it cannot be a matter of choice, because see, some researcher is doing work in one area because reviewers are researchers also themselves, they are into this field. So there might be some predilections for one particular area. So the reviewers cannot afford to have like favoritism for one thing, that just because one thing is recent, one thing is profitable, or one thing is likable by the reviewer, that's why that's promoted. So that is not to that should not be there. Objectivity has to be there in the reviews. No conflict of interest, definitely any interest or a bias of interest compromises the quality of any scientific work. Though for every review there is a declaration is given by the reviewer regarding declaring the conflict of interest. However, editors, if they are aware of the background of the researcher, so they may avoid that particular reviewer, because the reviewer being in the same competition, or maybe there is some other known bias. And the reviewers who are capable of giving good judgment after evaluating all the factors, and they should be able to write a very good critique. Here the comments has to be, since the reviewer's comment or the response would be positive also, negative also. However, this a reviewer should be in a position to uh, compose a very good critique which is accurate, which is readable, and which is helpful to the editors and authors. Though the review is for the manuscript by the authors, however, reviewer comments are helpful not only to the authors but to the editors also. That is why the purview of the reviewer is much more than just commenting upon one particular manuscript under reference. And I'm sure the editors would agree with the next point, that the reviewer should be reliable in returning the review. I'm sure that many of the editors must be shooting emails for the review. Some don't even respond, don't agree. But even if sometimes the reviewer agrees, then the compliance to respond to the response within the given time frame, that is also not very high. So that these are the all factors which an editor looks for when selecting the reviewer. Then once selected, what are the contents of a standard review? Review form is generally utilized by many of the journal. It is structured depending upon the scope of the journal, and generally the two comments are expected from the reviewer. One towards the comments to the editors, another to the authors. And to authors, it may be a general comment about the overall manuscript, and there could be specific recommendation depending upon the topic of research onto that. In addition to this, these are the standard format. The journal might curate some specific questions which are general, which are applicable to almost all of the manuscripts, and which would help the editor in taking a decision. In addition to the very specific comments given by the reviewer, which are particularly addressed to the topic of the research. So, journal may ask specific questions to ensure that the specific points are addressed. And what how to write a review? This is for the newer reviewers. That is, any review must be very clear, concise, and accurate. And comment should be as brief as possible, and specifically in case that there is an excellent and a very well prepared paper. And I think the experienced reviewer would agree that if the manuscript is written nicely, then the minimal comments are required. However, the comment may be extensive in a situation. There could be three situations. Either it's a very nicely written manuscript where it is to be accepted without any revision, or it is does not pass the basic standard of the manuscript, then it has to be rejected. However, majority of the manuscript fall into the third category, where there has been some good scientific work, however, it requires some refinement, and then it can take the shape of the scientific writing, because conducting a research is altogether different area into the field, and writing a research is required into a more or less defined format. So the reviewer comment may be extensive if the reviewer feels that the paper has valuable elements, but it still requires an extensive revision to present the finding effectively, because there are many constraints with the journal, the space constraint, the time, and the so the from the editor's point of view, they would like to condense the research into the smaller space, because it occupies the space, virtual space, as well as the manual on the printed format. And reviewers should remember that the review will be sent to the authors, and it should be written in a very constructive and collegial tone. Again, I iterate that reviewers have a bigger responsibility, more than merely commenting upon the manuscript under reference. It is the responsibility of the reviewers to help the researcher to grow, to give the constructive comments which will benefit not only that particular research, but will give a direction or some support to propagate the research further in that field, because the reviewer is expert in that field. He or she is in a position to give such comments which will give an ideas or assistance to the researchers to further enhance their existing research or to the upcoming researches. So that is why the reviewers help the authors. In addition to managing the manuscript, reviewers duty is to help the authors also, to grow the authors also. So, a good review should help the authors to think more clearly about their work, its design, execution, presentation, and its significance. Reviews, confidentiality is a very important aspect, and that's why reviewers are generally blinded. Blinding gives like more or less an unbiased view. Reviewer's identity is known definitely to the editors and the journal staff which is dealing with that manuscript. However, the reviewer identity is usually not released to the authors, and it is usually not released to the third parties also. And it is usually, but certain journals might have the policy that they have open review, so might be reviewed. So it depends upon the journal's policy. However, blinding has its own benefits. And blinding is intended to shield the reviewers and allow them to provide the critical and the honest reviews. Because till the time the reviewers are doing the review, they are shielded. There's a partition between the authors and the reviewers, and that gives them the ability to give the honest review. However, sometime the authors might come to know about the reviewers also, or if it is not, a journal is not adopting a blinded review policy. Confidentiality is very critical. I think that gives the a sense to the review process, because it is all confidential till that research work sees the gets into the published word. Till that stage, final stage, confidentiality is absolute and the whole responsibility lies with the reviewers. Not only the paper, but what are the outcomes and the content of the review, they are confidential. I might, if I may cite it with a simple example, that not only that what paper has been written, suppose some significant outcome or the results are there, and these results might have some far reaching influence, maybe in the scientific research, maybe financial implication, maybe some implications with the competitors. So till the time it is of this research is officially published and available to the world, reviewer has to maintain, otherwise prematurely if this confidentiality is breached, it might have catastrophic influence if financial implications are involved. So before it might benefit or adversely affect the researcher. So the confidentiality till it is officially published into the public domain has to be absolutely maintained, because lapse in the confidentiality undermine the review process. This betrays the trust of the authors and the editors and can create serious problems for everyone involved in the review. But sometimes reviewers, they get the paper and they may not be, there may be some reason that they are not in a position to give the comments. Then what is the option with the reviewer? They may pass it on to the another reviewer, maybe because after abstract it is not very clear whether the area lies within their domain of expertise or not, and while having a full look at the full paper, they may lie out of the expertise of the reviewer. So it is ethical to deny to review such a paper which is out of expertise of the reviewer. In that situation, the transfer of the review is generally required. However, it can be done only with the permission of the editor. But sometimes the permission is granted in the cover letter, and if it is not given, generally when the review is granted to the reviewer, the permission is pre-granted, and if not so, then the editor should be contacted in advance, and then only transfer of the review should be done. The reviewer initially contacted should always let the editor know that the manuscript has been given to the another reviewer. It is very important to have in the system that who actually reviewed for many reasons. For it is important for the journal records, like who did the review. Maybe it was first sent to reviewer X, but it was transferred to Y. So the same change has to be made into the journal records, and general staff may need to configure the web portal for the new reviewer, all because we understand for the sake of maintaining the confidentiality, all review processes, they are well protected with the passwords and all. So everybody cannot have access. So grant the access to the new reviewer. It is important that the information about the transfer of a reviewer should be shared with the general office. Also, it is required to allow the actual reviewer to receive the credit, because reviewing is a very high quality professional duty. So the credit for this should be, because if journal record has that reviewer X was assigned the duty of review and comments have been received. So because generally these are automated system, the credit should not go to the X if the manuscript has been transferred to the Y. So for this reason, the transfer of the manuscript has to be done in appropriate manner with approval and updatation of the general records. But what is the benefit for this credit? We talked about that credit. Who will be getting the credit? What is the credit for the young researchers review? I'm sure the young researchers, the first time, generally, most of the journals, they have the voluntary reviewers. Very less scanty are the paid ones, but reviewers' job is generally voluntarily. It is an expert with so much of expertise in the area to take out time for an extensive review, and that to voluntary. Then there might be a question in the budding professional: why should anybody be joining this voluntary activity? What is the benefit to the young researchers specifically? Because it will allow them to develop a track record in the peer review process. That's how the one new researcher, because most of the researchers are reviewers, sorry, the most of the reviewers are already researchers, they are into the scientific publications, and to get them enter into the reviewer process and the publication overall, including reviewer as well as editor. This serves as an entry point into the publishing, scientific publishing. It also adds a new reviewers to the journal's database, thus facilitating the future invitation to the review paper. Once a name is entered into the database, then any researcher is more likely to get more of the reviews and build the reviewers' professional network, and they become known to the editors. That's how this journey into the publication, scientific publication, starts. And this all lead to it increases the reviewers' visibility. How visibility increase? Because usually the journal lists their reviewers and they thank the reviewers. When do they thank? In the journal and on the journal and the society website. But in the previous slide, we discussed confidentiality has to be maintained. Nobody knows who's the reviewer. On the other side, we are projecting as the reviewer's advantage as visibility. These are two contradictory statements. Yes, reviewer's identity is concealed as long as the person is conducting the role of the reviewer. However, once the job is done, they are given due credibility and visibility also. For example, the reviewers keep working for the journal for the whole year. Maybe at the December issue or at the end, their names, their credentials, and everything after the review is complete, those are given due credit and adequate visibility. So that is how, though the reviewers remain anonymous, but they get their due credit. So the journal editors are often asked to recommend the committee members, the speakers, and study section members, and to comment on the promotions. And once they have the editors have the databases of the reviewers, then they are in a position to recommend if any such panel is required. So, a solid track record performance in the peer review process enhances the visibility of young investigators and enhance the development of their career. So, though it is a voluntary process, but still voluntarily many reviewers review just to keep up to the date. One of the biggest advantage before any research is known to the anyone the scientific fraternity. It is known to the reviewer, and that's how they become the part of this community. It helps to develop the career professional development, and also gives us many newer ideas because newer research are reaching the reviewers first before to the readers later. But a word of caution with, because there is so much of responsibility with the reviewers. Reviewers must remember that they are the agents of the journal and not the friend of the authors. The new reviewers often empathize with the authors of the manuscript they review, and it is sometimes difficult to adopt a more institutional perspective and to realize that reviewers' primary role is to advise the journal, not to help the author publish the paper. So yes, rejection might not be like very a pleasant duty, but in the sense of the professional dignity, it is very much required. Primary job of the reviewers is to help the journal and the editor just by giving the comments, not deciding. That decision remains with the editorial board, but just to help the journal to take that decision whether that any manuscript is to be published or not. So a reviewer may feel bad about rejecting a paper and empathize with the authors, but he or she must be able to make a recommendation for rejection when it is the appropriate one. And the young reviewers and researchers would agree with this, that no negative comment from the reviewer is taken in a bad spirit. Maybe in the initial career, when some students or some new researchers might take it, but later the reviewers' critical comments are the one which give the maximum of the learning in the research. And if you will think carefully, reviewer comments are not available anywhere. Information, knowledge, everything is available in the books, available in the journals, available on the podcast, available on many things. But reviewer comments are never ever not available anywhere. So even if the manuscript is rejected, a very wonderful piece of advice, comment from the best or expert in the field is received by the researcher from the as in the form of the reviewer's comments. So they are wonderful. So I would like to conclude that the forethought and the planning enables a reviewer to avoid many potential problems. And whenever in doubt about the ethical issues, the reviewer should discuss the concerns with the editor or the journal staff. And reviewers should always work to provide reviews that meet the high standards of the science. And as we discussed, because a lot of onus lies to be very critical, confidential, and prompt to maintain the high level of the scientific publications. I thank you all for your patient listening.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a wonderful and knowledgeable content you have in your presentation. It was really very insightful and thought provoking. As you said, reviewers are agents, not the friends of author. Yes, definitely. So he or she should not empathize with the authors because research should be more authentic. It should not be biased. Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a knowledgeable content. I hope our attendees uh, gather some fruitful information from the presentation.
Uh,
Thank you once again, ma'am.
uh,
Up
can we
next, we
ask
have.
everyone to ask your questions in the question answer box as actually we are looking for your questions for Dr. Manurati ma'am in question answer box. Thank you. Dr. Rati, one question is from Dr. Meena.
So,
Sometimes general
Yes, ma'am.
doesn't give, yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes journal doesn't give the decisions on the manuscript in required time of 10 to 12 weeks. Author has to write repeatedly to editor what to do at the time.
yes, thank you, Ms. Meena Dias, for your question. So, ma'am, actually, as you have stated there, the editor does not give the decision in the required time of 10 to 12 weeks. See, this time period uh, is to be decided by the journal. It is not a mandate. First of all, there is no standard guideline that journal has to give the decision within this period. And generally the journals would display on their website or information for the authors that what is the time period in which the response is expected. So every journal, a good journal will display that, or you can communicate with the editor what is the expected time. And many of the journals even say, madam, not only 10 to 12 weeks, couple of days are specified, like for first decision these many days, and those days are calculated on the basis of the average for the whole year in a scientific way. And the journals display what is the time taken for the first decision, or what is the time taken from decision to acceptance and the publication. So, as long as journal is agreeing and sticking to the timeline disclosed by the journal or known to the authors, they are right in their decision. So, some journal might take time less than 10 to 12 if they agree so, or may take more so. So, it is not mandatory to give the response in one particular time, but author are free to either, if the mostly the information is available on the website, how much, how many are the days taken. If not so, communicate with the editor. Editor will communicate this is the timeline, and author is in a position to take a decision even before submitting the manuscript, because this journal is taking 7 weeks. I cannot afford to give this much of a time, and they may not submit the manuscript into that. So the time period can be easily known by the author. I hope I have answered your question, ma'am.
Ma'am, there are huge number of question now, so you can even write there the answer. But we can take one more question online from one editor, Dr. Devrishi Kar Mahapatra. He is asking, reviewing of manuscript is considered as a thankless job. How general can enough motivation to the expert?
Thank you so very much, sir. And I totally endorse your point of view, because in one of my slides, said the first slide, how the editor chooses the reviewer. Because it is hard to find the reviewers who respond and who are professionals. First thing, the experts, to find the expert, those experts who are interested to be the reviewer, and those reviewer who respond in time. It is a wonderful combination and very difficult to find, no doubt about it. But sir, see, we always, editors always look for the true professionals. If I can see, any professional, any researcher would look towards a good reviewer's comment, because these are such a building block to developing good research and good professionals, that any true researcher would value this. I agree it is very difficult to find, but only a true professional can deliver such a job. Because uh, uh, voluntary, that was the one I have already discussed in my presentation also, it is very difficult to find. So we cannot motivate it. We cannot expect anyone to be professional, but the true professional will get attracted towards it. I understand it is a challenge, sir, and there are only handful of them. It is a struggle for the editor. Genuine problem, but definitely we have a less lot of such people. It is not thankless, sir, job, but yes, those who don't value it, they consider it thankless. But those who but my, I can personally endorse it. My learning when understand, as I mentioned, emphasized enough. Reviewers are comment are not available in the world. They are the confidential comments. It is such a wise piece of coming from an expert. It is not available in any paid journal. So any true professional will value such comments, sir. But I totally agree with the genuine problem faced by the editor, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Khushbu, please continue.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so yes, ma'am. Up next, we have Dr. Vidya Shekhar ma'am, who will present on the topic of editorial board composition. Ma'am brings extensive experience in academic publishing and will share her insights on how a thoughtfully structured editorial board contributes to a journal's credibility, governance, and academic integrity. Ma'am, you are most welcome. Please
Thank
share.
you, Ms. Khushbu. I'm just going to share my screen.
Yes,
Just let
ma'am.
me know if it is visible. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Just give me a minute. Is it in slideshow mode, Ms. Khushbu?
Yes, ma'am. It is.
A very good evening to everyone. I'm Dr. Vidya Shekhar, and the topic, as described by Khushbu already, is editorial board composition. Now, the most, I think, a part of the body, a human body, would be the vertebrae and the spinal cord, which kind of holds everything together. So, if you can imagine the vertebral column with the spinal cord itself, that would be a journal's editorial board. That is what it has to bind everything together. It has to bind the authors, it has to bind the reviewers, it has to bind the other people who work in the office category to ensure that the timely publication of the journal occurs either in the online or in the offline mode, and also manage the journal's overall impact to the entire world, because how much is their article cited, how often it is cited. So that is the entire vertebral column, which is the editorial board, which does the entire thing. So therefore, obviously, an editorial board cannot be a very small composition. So it has a very wide variety of composition, which we will see in the stages. So before we understand the composition, let us understand what we are going to study or understand today. First, we will understand the agenda. So the agenda for an editorial board is that it has to have a makeup. Then there has to be some kind of significance and roles and responsibilities of each person in the editorial board. So we will be learning or listening to all of these aspects. So the editorial group board is a group of subject experts who implement the publication approach to editorials and other decisions. It is responsible for maintaining the quality of the research work. Now, this sentence of maintaining the quality of research work is very difficult because what do you aim for, or what is the scope of your journal? Who is going to decide that? I suggest that the editorial board composition, that is, the persons in the editorial board, are going to decide the aim and the scope of the journal, which will further decide the quality of the research work that is accepted by the journal. So it is all interlinked with each other, right? Next is some policies, as it's already written, implement the publication's approach to editorials and other decisions. So therefore, there has to be some sort of policy which has to be taken up by the editorial board members by themselves. So they have to create not only the aim and the scope of the journal, what kind of research to accept, which part of the subject are we going to take most interest in, but they are also going to say the policies and the processes as to how that particular research has to be treated. So the peer review process, which Manurati ma'am has just talked about, comes into this process with editorial policies and processes. This is a major aspect of the editorial board which is being done. And then the next aspect will be the scientific rigor. So has the journal followed a certain review process? Does it have a proper scientific approach to take care of the rigor of the journal? So if the rigor of the journal is very good, it means the journal is very standardized and it has a high, which will mostly, to all probability, will have a high impact value. And then lastly, but not the least, we have the administration part or the production part of this particular journal, which is also going to be interacting with the editorial board, and few members of the editorial board will be in constant touch with them to ensure that timely publication, journal maintenance, the website maintenance, etc. is being done on a regular basis. So let's dive into the editorial board's makeup as such. Now, the category of editorial board are, there is going to be an editor-in-chief, there will be an associate editor, section editors, and advisory board members, as well as guest editors. Now, editor-in-chief is the main top position of the editorial board itself. It will be like a CEO of a particular company, as good as that. Then you have associate editors who support the editor-in-chief to ensure that all the roles and responsibilities of the editorial board committee are complied with. Then, according, as I just told you, a journal has to decide on what part of the research is going to take care of. For example, we have seen journals of ophthalmology alone. We've seen journals of gynecology alone. There are some journals only saying that we want to deal with everything that is in the pharmacy sector, pharmaceutical research. But however, do you want to specify that, oh no, I am a journal for only cataract in ophthalmology, or I am a journal only for IVF or reproduction in whatever, IVF in gynecology. I'm not good at that. So excuse me. And then there might be somebody who says that I'm only going to deal with epileptic drugs inside the pharmaceutical sector. And when such things are there, then we need section editors, because a particular topic like ophthalmology, gynecology, or even pharmaceutical research is going to be a very huge topic. So there are going to be a lot of small sections into which there are many people doing a lot of research in that and specializations in that. So those people who have done research and specializations in those particular subcategories, they will be considered as section editors for that particular journal or whatever it is. Now, the advisory board members will usually be a group of renowned people in that particular subject category, who are going to give their expert opinions, counsel the editorial board as to what should be changed, give some good strong inputs that they can change the expertise of the editorial board in itself. Also, sometimes we may go in to call guest editors as a part of our editorial category. Therefore, there is the editorial chief who is like a CEO. Associate editor will not be a single person. They may be 2 to 3 people together who might be associate editors who will support the editor-in-chief. The editor-in-chief is always only a single person. Section editors, as many sections as the journal wants to create, they can create and make section editors for each particular section. Advisory board members, as many people as they think that who have excellent expertise in that particular area and give counsel and expertise to the editorial board members, and guest editors are welcomed on a day-to-day basis now and then. So the next part would be the other editors. I'm so sorry. They will be just a minute. There's also a managing editor. As I told you, there's going to be one office team which is going to be supervising the editing, the editorial activities like the peer review process, assigning the website, etc. So that is being done by a managing editor who's going to be the manager for that particular journal, who's going to be taking care of all the unscientific. This is not really into the scientific aspect, because this is not going to be with knowledge. This is more going to be like managing the entire team together so that the journal articles are out on time. And then you have the copy editor who will check the grammar, the punctuation, the style, the arrangement of the tables, figures, graphs, etc. So that the general English, if the journal is following the English language, the general English of the particular article is appropriate for that particular journal. So the editors, when will you or how will the editor-in-chief decide that this particular editor is going to join your journal? So as I told you, the editor has to first decide the aim and the scope of the journal. So depending upon the scope of the journal, the subjects which are going to be covered within that journal will be decided. So based on the subjects that will be covered in that particular journal, the editor or the associate editor will choose subject experts. Now, they may choose their friends, their colleagues, their peers from reputed institutions whom they know, and they have to write request letter to ask them to be a part of the team. Now, there will be usually an institution which is a part of a particular journal. Like, for example, many government institutions or universities have their own journals. So, some of the universities will have their own subject experts in that particular university who will be affiliated to those people. So, they can expect many of those subject experts to be a part of that particular journal. So they will become internal subject experts. There can also be external subject experts who are not a part of the university or the college by itself, but they are outside experts. So they can also be subject experts, who will be regularly doing the reviewing process or the editorial process for that particular journal. However, this is different from guest editors who are only sometimes called in cases where there is a particular subject or topic which requires an expertise who is not a part of your editorial board members. Now, this particular editor who is joining you should also be have a lot of publications in national, international quality, in good peer-reviewed journals, must be of a very reputed scientific nature, okay, and should have an academic experience of no less than at least 10 years. Because when we start a journal, when we say have started a journal, it takes a minimum of 2 years of running of that journal to be able to gather that kind of information, because of which the journal can go in for further indexing. So a person with less academic experience will not be able to understand the intricacies of this process that is involved for a particular indexing of the journal to take place, which is another aspect which has to be dealt with by the editorial board itself. So academic background must also be of at least a associate professor, reader level or a professor level in itself. And the researcher must be having public profiles on LinkedIn, Scholar, Google Scholar, and Scott in Scopus or in ORCID, etc. So as I told you, the keys of the editorial board. So the first is the editorial board affiliation, in which we have chosen people to be a part of this particular editorial board composition itself. Now, let's say we have some people, let me give a general overview. We have called some people to our home for a party. So if we are staying all by ourselves as single individuals, say bachelors, then we would more likely call other bachelors to a party. If we were in a family sort of way, we would call people with other families to join us for the party, right? But what if you wanted everybody, the bachelors, the families, the older generation, everybody together in that party? So that is called as diversity. And the similar kind of geographical diversity is expected out of not only the editorial board composition, but also the kind of articles that are submitted to that particular journal. So the editorial board composition also requires the geographical diversity, and the articles that are going to be published in that particular journal also require geographical diversity. Now, if you look at certain journals, some of them would be from India, some of them would be from out of India. That becomes a geographical diversity in itself. Now, if the journal is mainly originating from South India and has a lot of articles from the North, West, and the East part of India, then that also gives it a geographical diversity in terms of articles. Now, how can you ensure geographical diversity in terms of editorial board members? Because as I told you, most of them will be internal editorial board members of that particular university or college. But that is where I said to you that there can be some external board members who are subject experts who are willing to be a part of your editorial board. So they will offer you a geographical diversity in that particular case. Before we go on to subject expert in itself, the editorial board's main work or role of responsibility would be that the article which is submitted to the journal is reviewed in a proper manner. It is checked for many other ethical conflicts of interest, etc., which we will discuss a bit later. And then it is submitted to the subject expertise. It is submitted by the subject expertise to various reviewers, right? So that is the basic idea of subject expert. So as analysis, I told you, majority of the editorial board members should have noticeable publication. They should have good citation networks, and they should precisely imitate the scope and the standards of the journals. Now, who is going to decide the scope and standard of the journal? The editorial board is going to decide the scope and the standard of that journal. So the editorial board is considered to be the dedicated professional or our vertebral spinal cord to contribute to vital academic research. So what are the various roles and responsibilities of the editorial board in itself? Now, when we go to scopes and aims of the journal, then there itself we have ensured that this is the kind of article or this is the kind of research that we are going to entertain into our journal. So therefore, we can easily say that this is the part that we're going to do. So we have to ensure authorship contribution. Now, in many journals, as we've seen over a period of time, that the study is being done by one or two people, and there are some extra authors who are included into that particular team to ensure that they also get an authorship for promotion, etc. Now that has to be again seen by the editorial board. So nowadays the journals have their own aspect in which they ask each work which is done by all the authors mentioned in that particular article. So that removes that problem. Then conflict of interest. Now, is this possible, isn't it, that a person in that editorial board itself is a part of that article in itself? That is also possible. That is also a conflict of interest for the editorial board in itself. So in those cases, the editor-in-chief can ensure that either it is given to a guest editor or it is given to some other section head who will ensure that there is no or there is minimal conflict of interest in that particular area. Another aspect and roles and responsibilities is the intellectual property rights. As the journal or the article gets accepted in a journal, property rights of that particular article are immediately given to the editorial board in itself or the journal in itself. Okay. Then we have ensure while reading the article or the editor-in-chief and the section editors, before they give it to the peer review process, they also read through the article. They see if there is any research malconduct. For example, misconduct. For example, if there is any plagiarism, which has to be checked. If there is any manipulative data, if there is any data which is manipulated in itself, or if there is any copyright issue. So these are all part of the peer review process, which is done before the article is given or submitted to the peer reviewer. It's all done by the editorial board. Also, if there is any author fees that has to be charged by the journal, that will also be written or decided by the editorial board themselves. For example, printing charges, etc. It might be. Some advertisings that you see in front of the journal and the backspace of the journal is also decided by a part of the editorial board in itself. Okay. Next is the editorial board also decides on the reviewers for that particular topic. So the section editors will mainly decide the reviewers for that particular journal, which is for the article that has been submitted into that particular journal. And the editor will say whether this article which has come in is under the scope and of the journal or not. So if it is under the scope of the journal, the editor-in-chief will give it to the associate editor. The associate editor will further decide all these processes that I have told you just now and give it to the section editor. Now, the section editor has to realize whether this particular process, where the English language is good, whether there is a proper keywords, abstract has been properly written, whether there is any other malpractice within that particular thing, if there is any figure or a table which is not properly depicted, if there are any points where there is some sort of doubts, then the section editor itself, before sending it for a peer review process, sends it back to the author for rewrite or for correction. Now, as I told you, every single article that is published in a journal will have something called as a DOI. A DOI is a digital object identifier. So once the article has gone through the peer review process and it is going to be accepted by the journal, then automatically a DOI for that particular article will be created by the editorial board in itself. Okay, so the review process has to be conducted fairly. They have to participate in meetings for upliftment of the journal. Now, what is this upliftment of the journal? As I told you, an initial single journal has been started today. 2 years down the lane, you require a minimum of 2 years as per Scopus, Web of Science, NLM, and PubMed, that they should have a minimal time of 2 years at which that at no point of time should any article or journal issue, all of them should have been printed or all of them should have come online. There should not be any missing article for at least missing journal for at least 2 years. So if that is there, then they expect that the diversity of articles will be more, not only the geographical diversity, but the article diversity for the particular various topics will be more. But also they will have many different authors from different parts who will come in. There will be more number of indexing, or there will be more metrics for that particular journal which can be made for the upliftment of the journal. So after all this, the editorial board also has a responsibility to ensure indexing for their particular journal. So when they go for indexing, they have to go through many processes, 3-tier processes. There is a pre-process where they ensure that their name or the journal name is unique and it has not been written anywhere else. It does not come under in any other manner. They should have that the peer review system is perfect. There has to be keywords, there has to be abstract, it has to be usually published in English, and it should have a regular publishing schedule. There should not be miss of any schedule. Also, there should be no malpractice in that particular journal, which is there for those particular articles. There should be an ISSN number for each article that is published. They should have a proper website where all this process that I've explained right now is clearly outlined and is visible, and there should also be a good content of the journal with a good geographical diversity for the editorial board members and for the other members, and they should also have a DUI for every particular article. So when all this occurs together, only then upliftment of the journal can be done. The editorial board also provides guidance to all the editorial assistants for the completion of that particular article, and also invites editorials from various editors who are part of the editorial board members for the article, for the journal. Also promotes the journal at various conferences, workshops. They have to ensure quality of the published content the way I've just told you. And they also address research misconduct, plagiarism, conflict of interest. So what are the future goals? As I've already described these future goals, more number of citations, more visibility for the journal, more geographical diversity in terms of authors, editorial board members, and articles. More future goals towards the journal quality. What decides the journal quality? The impact factor of the journal decides the journal quality, and the editorial board is always ensuring that the journal quality is as high as possible. There can always be future NMC indexing or PubMed indexing or Scopus indexing or Web of Science indexing as of these days. These various catalog indexing are also done by the editorial board. So to summarize, the editorial board is the most efficient player in the journal. It is the vertebra or the backbone of the journal. There are going to be various editors who are going to be working round the clock to maintain the quality of the academic research. We've discussed the main aspects of the editorial board and the significance. It's difficult for me to summarize them in very short goals. And they are mainly involved in uplifting of the journal, and they have clear goals for future. So once they have attained the indexing, say Scopus, PubMed, etc., then we feel that they finally did it. That is the kind of this thing. But to ensure that that indexing stays on for a longer period of time, they have to ensure that whatever they did, they have to continue over a long period of time to ensure that that particular indexing stays with them. The indexing helps more number of articles and better geographical distribution of articles into that particular section. So these are the references, and any doubts or anything so far, I think you can ask me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your great presentation. And we have a huge, our question answer box is flooded with the question. But because we are running behind the time, so I just asked Dr. Vidya Rekha, ma'am, to start presenting her topic. And in between, you please answer online also about the questions which is coming from participants. And at last, we are taking few live questions too. Thank you very much for your insightful thoughts, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Vidya Rekha.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. I'm Dr. Vidya Rekha. I'm very happy to present here Today my topic of the day is about content relevance. Just give me a moment. I'm sharing my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
One second. Coming to is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am. You are I mean, audible and visible. Please go
Yeah.
ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Today we'll be discussing about content relevance, which is a very good topic to discuss. So, I'll be putting like to the synopsis of today's presentation. We'll be talking about what is content
Sorry for
relevance.
interruption. Can you please put it into the slide share mode?
Yes, ma'am. Slide share, I'm not able to. One second. Yes.
Thank you.
The importance of content relevance, the journal scope and purpose. So, the Scopus content selection guidelines will be saying about Web of Science Clarivate's criteria, Medline evaluation guidelines, PubMed Central's editorial guidelines, some examples of scope alignment and misalignment, understanding scope drift, consequences of irrelevant contents and strategies for maintaining, and about the role of editorial board. So to start with, content relevance ensures alignment with the journal's scope and readership. Main are the journal's credibility, the indexing success, alignment with the scopus, and alignment with purpose, and alignment with the readership. It is one of the, I can put it up as it's one of the foundational principles in academic publications. It is the degree to which journals publish content aligns with the declared aim, scope, and disciplinary of that particular journal. In the current academic landscapes, where the value and visibility of journals are often determined by their inclusion in major indexing platforms like Scopus, Web of Sciences, Medline, and PubMed Central. So, the importance of content relevance cannot be overstated. So, maintaining thematic coherence across all published articles ensures the credibility of the journal and supports its identity in the academic community, and it meets the strict selection requirements of indexing agencies. So, we need to understand the content relevance. So basically, it consists of two main dimensions, that is fit and focus. Fit means whether an individual article appropriately matches the journal's disciplinary domain and editorial objectives. So coming to focus, it refers to the journal's consistency in publishing content within its defined thematic area. So over a period of time. So these two aspects together ensure that a journal remains dedicated to a specified intellectual mission. For example, if a journal titled International Journal of Cardiology publishes articles about agricultural blockchain systems, even if the article is of high technical quality, it will be deemed irrelevant to the journal scope. It has to balance the journal's fit and focus. Like I told, alignment with the scope and consistency across issues. So why it matters? Because indexing bodies evaluate journals based on their content alignment. Authors publish in respected appropriate platforms, and to the readers, their access to high quality and relevant research. So coming to scope and purpose, components of journal's identity, a journal scope and statement of purpose are critical components that guide the editorial team in manuscript selection and policy development. So the scope outlines what subject areas and type of research the journal covers. Without a clearly articulated scope, a journal may find itself publishing a wide variety of content, so it mainly lacks coherence. So this is not only confuses the readers and authors, but also makes the journal vulnerable to rejection by all the indexing agencies. So the main components of journal identity coming to academic disciplines, which specifies the fields of study covered, article types, defines the kinds of articles accepted, and mission is to outline the journal's contribution to the field. So the journal, coming to journal indexing criteria, like an overview, Scopus content must align with the title and scope. In Web of Science, there should be thematic focus and consistent content. Medline gives a criteria of biomedical relevance and clarity. And coming to PubMed Central, the scope alignment and editorial consistency should be maintained. So the Scopus content selection criteria. Scopus managed by Elsevier, which mainly employs the content selection and advisory board to access journals for inclusion. So one of the primary criteria is that a journal must have a well-defined scope and consistently publish content that aligns with the scope. Journals that frequently publish off-topic articles or special issues that do not match the journal's stated aims are flagged. And Scopus discontinues nearly 600 journals every year, mainly due to scope drift, publication quality issues, or deceptive practices. This highlights how critical it is for journals to maintain the content relevance. So, coming to the top reasons for journal application rejections is inconsistency, that is, the content mismatch with journal leading to rejection. Scope alignment, special issues must align with core journal discipline. And as I said, the data insight 42% of journal applications was rejected in 2021. So, Medline evaluation guidelines, curated by U.S. National Library of Medicine, evaluates journals for scientific and medical relevance. So, journals must demonstrate that their content is aligned with the biomedical sciences and that their publication contributes to clinical and scientific understanding. The selection committee considers whether the content is methodologically sound and medically relevant. Like, for example, if a journal of neurosurgery publishes marketing strategy articles, it is considered to be outside the required biomedical scope and it risks exclusion. So, coming to article evaluation criteria, again, the relevance, how relevant is the article to biomedical sciences? Contributions, like wherein it does the article make, what contributions does the article make to the medical knowledge? And of course, the how scientifically and clinically valuable the published article is. Coming to PMC guidelines, PMC is a digital archive of biomedical and life sciences literature, which has strict editorial and scientific quality guidelines. It requires all articles to fall within its domain of life sciences and public health or clinical medicine. So, journals with vague or overly broad scopes or those which publish off topic guest edited issues often receive negative evaluations. So, the PubMed central reviewers also access whether the editorial board is monitoring scope consistency and whether there are any ethical concerns tied to the journal's publication practices. So, some of examples of scope alignment and misalignment is like I'll give you an example. Like Journal of Molecular Medicine is an example of well-aligned publication and consistently producing research in biology, molecular biology, genetics, and translational medicine. So this thematic focus has allowed it to maintain indexing in Scopus, Medline, and PubMed Central. So conversely, the Global Journal of Modern Research attempted to publish articles in sociology, physics, and business under one title without a coherent scope. So this lack of thematic unity led to the rejection by Web of Sciences for failure to demonstrate focus in academic discipline. So one big example is again Curious. So, which is a very good journal, which was taken from indexing because of the incoherent publications and the incoherent topics taken. So, coming to understanding the scope drift. So we must ensure content relevance and peer review, like in the article submission, scope alignment checklist matches the aim and subjects, serve the target audience and relevant publication. So consequences of irregular, sorry, sorry, one second.
Any problem, ma'am? Dr. Vidya?
Yes, ma'am. There was a technical glitch. Am I audible now?
Yes. Your screen is visible. You are audible.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So, coming to the consequences of irregular content. So, there is loss of credibility, indexing rejection, citation decline, and finally disengagement. Strategies to maintain relevance. So, first is define scope. Establish a clear and narrow focus for the journal specified which you're planning to submit. So, screen submissions, reject papers that do not align with the journal's aims. Train the reviewers, ensure reviewers understand the journal scope and access relevance. Auditing issues, regularly review published content to prevent scope drift and manage special issues. Carefully manage special issues to ensure they fit the journal scope. So, coming to the role of the editorial board. Editorial board has a central role in safeguarding the integrity and thematic focus of a journal. Board members must uphold the journal's editorial mission and participate in the curation of special issues. Excuse me, guide peer reviewers in relevance evaluation and ensure that the published articles align with long-term editorial goals. Failing to do may result not only in indexing issues but also in ethical lapses, particularly if the content is published with the aim of artificially inflating metrics or financial returns. So, to uphold the editorial mission, support long term vision, prevent scope drift, and guide the special issues. So, in conclusion, content relevance is a core principle that underpins the quality, visibility, and credibility of academic journals. So, a journal that maintains faithful to its scope, regularly audits its publications, and involves an editorial board in maintaining thematic consistency stands a greater chance of retaining its place in prestigious indexing databases. And more importantly, it serves its academic community with integrity and focus, which are the true hallmarks of scholarly excellence. So, it has to be in board with the indexing bodies, evaluate the scope adherence during journal selection, editorial leadership, wherein proactive screening for thematic consistency, special issues, monitor for off-scope inclusions in special issues, and focus journals earn trust and academic legitimacy. So these are my references. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a profound knowledge and a beautiful explanation of the content. The knowledge you have shared is very valuable, and I hope our audiences have gathered new information regarding the content relevance as it is up to date. And ma'am has also informed the number of rejections by the topmost indexing agencies. So we must be aware about in what areas we are lagging behind and what are the scope of improvement in our article publication. Shall we proceed with the questions, ma'am?
Yeah, sure. There are a few questions related to the subject specific of the reviewership. So one of the reviewer asked that manuscript of journal doesn't doesn't cover his expertise, right? So what to do for that manuscript? So I would like to request you just go through the MPRP portal in your review dashboard and add your specialty. Like subspecialties section is also there. So add your specialty, subspecialty for which you want to review. Then definitely you can get the manuscript about your own area of subjects. So There are few more questions. Dr. Manurathi, are you available here?
Yes, yes, ma'am,
Yes.
I'm here.
Yes, yes. There are a huge number of questions into the question answer box, and one is that sometimes general okay, reviewing of manuscript is considered a thankless job, which you had already replied, Dr. Manu, online, right? So. There is one question by Abhishek Velamuri. Ma'am, I have done 4 publications. Can I be a reviewer? Dr. Vidya Shekhar, would you like to please take this question?
Actually,
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
you can apply to be a reviewer to a particular journal. So there are many international journals which, in their own portal, they accept you have to apply to be a reviewer. As I told you, to be even a reviewer, as ma'am has already told, Manu ma'am has already told, to even be a reviewer, you have to have a certain level of experience. You may be a young researcher, but you should have participated in the process of research and published a few articles of your own so that you are well versed with it. So you can apply to some of the international journals. Also, there might be some editorial board members who might be your friends in other national journals of your particular subject expert. So you can contact them and ask them to be part of the journal in itself, and they might consider you based on known or because of your various experience and expertise.
Yes, and there is one more option. Actually, whenever you are going to be submit your article, every publisher website will ask to share the 2 reviewers' name. Sometime it will goes to 3 reviewers' name also. So you must just share with your colleagues too that you want to be review some good manuscripts of your own interest, and also with your seniors and your professors, so they will definitely help you to get a good opportunity to being a reviewer. Yes. Next question is for Dr. Manurati ma'am. If someone reviewer copy the work, then who can take action against them? Dr. Rathi.
Uh, yes, ma'am. Yeah, thanks, the delegate, for the question. I hope I'm audible, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah. So, see, it is a simple case of malconduct. I start from the simplest. If a student is doing cheating, who can take action? The first thing is the cheating caught or not? Action will be taken only when it is caught. Next thing, if there is evidence or not. Third thing is there is a predetermined criteria that what type of cheating, what is the punishment. So this is the thing required. As far as scientific publication is concerned, the criteria laid down for punishment are not there; they are not defined. And second thing, the intervening step how to catch hold of this cropping is that how to do the how the editors can find out, because researchers are not associated attached with the editor, they are in their respective places, respective institutes can take action, right? So there is no guideline that, but the whole thing is there is no provision of moral policing, right? Anybody who's having credibility is given the reviewership as long as it is evident that the credibility is there. I cited with one other simple example. Somebody is an examiner. There's a question paper. What is the surety that that will not be leaked? Because the responsibility of arranging a question is given to a person who is expert and who is credible enough, who will ensure that this confidentiality is maintained. Same way, the reviewership is given to a person who is expected to maintain this credibility. If this credibility is not there, or once it is known to the editor, the person will be thrown out of the chain of the reviewers, barring blacklisting and all. But your question, there are no existing laid down guidelines or rules to that. There is no measures to check. The editors can check what the person is doing in an institute. It totally depends upon the professional morale and a person is expected to conduct. I hope this answers your question.
Exactly. Even nowadays, even not nowadays. I mean, this particular procedures and understanding about the research and publication ethics should be teased in every research in a form of various courses, research methodology, and even in the good clinical practice in the medical and pharmaceutical institutions. So
Yeah,
the
ma'am,
ethical,
I would
yes.
like to add one more thing. Like, if the concern of gate is that why does somebody is not stealing the work? Suppose a surgeon is working in the operation theater, patient is under general anesthesia, the abdomen is open. Why doesn't the surgeon steal the kidney? Because surgeon can do that, but it depends upon the professional ethics. Anything which is lying in the control of a person, it never means that person will steal that. So that is simply a professional conduct, nothing late guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. One of the editor is suggested few of our journal is needed to be updated for the revision of the editorial board for few journals. So surely, actually, innovative publication is always open, and there is a unbiased procedures and ethical guidelines which is available for the editors, reviewers, and authors on the website, and we are open for the taking application all over the globe for editors and reviewers. So please apply, and definitely our team, I mean the editorial selection team, which is from the Innovative Education and Scientific Research Foundation, they will select you, and I mean the editorial board will must be revised in the on the basis of their credential only. And secondly, actually you all the editors are requested to suggest the journals and other colleagues too to join the journals as an editor and reviewer. To Dr. Vidya Shekhar ma'am, one question is there for you. Yes. How to comment on the quality of publication of article for future publication?
How to comment?
Yes. How to comment on the quality of publication of article for the future publication? I mean, I guess this is the reviewer's question, and he wants that what improvement they can take. I understand this question like this.
Actually, if it is if it's a question from one of the editorial board members for ensuring that there is a better article or good research has to come to your journal, if that's what you're trying to ask, then I would suggest that go for indexing of the journal. The minute you go for indexing process of your journal, it will certainly attract many more kinds of articles. One. So when you have many articles, you can choose, pick and choose from one of those which are good. So if this is from the editorial board point of view, if it is from a reviewer's point of view, I would suggest that see, a reviewer has a double edge. He or she is also reviewing the particular article which has been submitted to a journal. At the same time, the reviewer is getting a new idea. Every time the newer articles are being reviewed by the reviewer gets new ideas or gets exposed to something which is different or a different viewpoint of another author by itself. So, in those ways, I think the reviewer can contribute to saying or suggesting certain important aspects which can be changed in the study itself if there is something very seriously wrong with the study, or if there is a problem with the article which has been given or written, then the written aspect can be changed. Like, for example, certain reviewers say that the discussion needs to be a little more elaborate. You need to stress on. So, such points when given by the reviewers will help the article get a better it makes it a little better. So once it makes it a little bit better for the editorial board, then obviously the journal itself will have a better impact factor or a better rating in itself. It is all the articles together that make up the journal. The journal cannot be an exceptional journal and then it gets more articles into it. The kind of articles that are published in the journal will finally decide on the metrics of the journal itself.
Exactly,
I
madam. The
hope
quality
this
of article
answers the
decide the
question.
metrics of the journal. Yeah, exactly. So thank you very much for your answer. And there are other questions which we had already taken during the presentation, we write it, and you can even go through the website of us and find the many questions answered there in 24/7 FAQ section. And we had even prepared one resources section for editors, for reviewers, for authors, and even for other societies, publishers, librarians too, so that you can go through the sections and you find more information, informative sections there. Thank you.
Ma'am, I just want to share the screen.
Yes, please.
As a token of gratitude and appreciation. So please accept the certificate of excellence. So first goes to Dr. Manurathi ma'am.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Jessica. Thank
thank
you.
you ma'am so much for such a valuable contribution to the knowledge and to today's session. Thank you ma'am. Next goes to Dr. Vidyashekhar ma'am. Thank you so much ma'am for such a knowledgeable presentation. Thank you so much. Next, we have Dr. Vidya Rekha ma'am. Sorry ma'am, it is misprint over here. It's Dr. Vidya Rekha ma'am. So we will going to correct it soon. Thank you once again for joining us today and sharing your valuable knowledge with us.
Thank you very much to every speaker today for your insightful thoughts, provoking presentations today. And stay tuned for our tomorrow session on which is panel discussion on practices and policies in research publication. And after this particular event, tomorrow, after tomorrow, you can get your e-certificate. So you can download from our website and just go through the resources section of ours so that you can get more informations all about the previous programs too. As I had find one questions from one anonymous participant also, that he wants to learn about the writing skills. So there is also a number of programs, events we did for the research writing, research ethical procedures, research guidelines. So you just go through our resource section and you can explore this information there. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Vidya Rekha, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Manurathi, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Vidya Shekhar, for your kind
And before
presence.
we conclude, I place on records wonderful thanks to Dr. Nikita and Kushbu and the team. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a great time. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye.